back to another Character Corner here on the MTR Network. I'm your host, Chris, and I'm also here with my co-host, D-Palm. And we're back, part one of our Green Lanterns Character Corner, man. It's been a while.
Okay, look. We're going to be real about this because this is going to be a two-parter at least.
At least.
I want to get in front of this. You may have heard the passion of my voice when I talked to Wally West in our very first ever Character Corner. The two DC properties that I loved more than anything growing up were Green Lantern and Flash, so we're about to have a lot of fun.
Great.
And rereading some of this stuff, I forgot how much I like Green Lantern. And how cool a concept it really is.
So here's the thing. This is my first time really reading Green Lantern.
Okay.
Yeah, first time really reading Green Lantern. Never really read any of this stuff before. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let's do this and see how it goes. And yeah, man, I'm enjoying it. Do you know what it is? It's when I started reading this stuff, especially the early stuff we're getting, we're basically going up to what 0 hour on this one, right?
Emerald Twilight.
Yeah. So okay. So we're this was again my first introduction to really the Green Lantern stuff and reading it, and the thing that stood out to me was just how human some of the stories were.
Right.
Like I'm like, oh, some of the stuff is like damn near depressing, and like they go through some shit, man. They go through.
Yeah, it's crazy because they did a really good job, especially in the sci-fi heavy 70s, of balancing the fantastic with the personal.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about like the hard traveling hero stuff, like where they just did social issues with Green Lantern and Green Arrow in a car driving across America.
Yeah, that's
which in 1970s a crazy idea, but it works so well.
Yeah, and it actually kind of holds up. Like I was reading some of this stuff, I'm like, this stuff is not that bad, and really well. So, let's start off first. The Green Lantern name and character first came about. All American Comics, 1940, number 16. It was Golden Age, the Golden Age Green Lantern. And we're not going to go too much into him because we talked a little bit about him, I think in the GSA stuff. Alan Scott.
Yeah, man, Alan Scott. People forget that so that they always say that the big three of the JSA is Wildcat, Green Arrow, or Green Lantern, and the Flash. And while the Flash is antecedent, it's clearly the Flash, and Wildcats is is Batman. Green Lantern's analog to the modern age isn't Green Lantern. Alan Scott was Superman.
Right.
Alan Scott was super it's so funny, especially when you read the modern interpretations of DC characters. Like you've read Hush, and part of that involves Bruce Wayne going to the city, going to Metropolis with his dad, and seeing Green Lantern fight Icicle.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that was in the Hush thing. The thing was him and Elliot C. Thomas Elliot C. Alan Scott literally flying over the city. It's a surreal thing. Like you said, he's Superman.
He really, and it's so weird because he's Superman. That's what Alan Scott was, and they eventually tie him into the larger GL mythos. We'll talk about that, I guess, a little later on, or probably next episode as we talk about Kyle and Jade and Jenny. But yeah, it's so strange because they took this magical ring Superman from the 40s, and when the Silver Age launched with Barry Allen's appearance and all. And I think Hal's first appearance was Showcase 42?
Yes.
Showcase 42, this is where they were taking old concepts and trying to make them updated for the space age. So how do you make something that's not a magic ring? You make it a science ring. Mm-hmm. And you make it a ring that doesn't just give you these powers, it enters you into an intergalactic police force. And so stop right there. And because it's DC, and because I'm sure we'll get a good DC Unlimited from Chris.
Oh yeah,
You read the original origin and it's okay. It's a little clunky, and the main things you think about when you say Hal Jordan are there, but you get to the 90s and you get a revisiting with Emerald Dawn.
Yeah, and that's where I would suggest people start.
Yeah, 100%. They really do a good job of crystallizing who Hal Jordan is and why the Ring would choose him. But at the same time, it's tough to do DC origins. So if you listen to any of our DC character corners, they're going to be a little bit differently structured than our Marvel ones because they reorder their own universe so many damn times.
Yeah.
But the things you know about Hal Jordan is that his father was a pilot who was famous for having no fear. He idolized his father. He rebelled against his family by entering the Air Force and following his father's footsteps. Discharged, becomes a test pilot. One day as a test pilot, he stumbles across, for a variety of ways or reasons and different interpretations, a crashed alien ship. Mm-hmm. Where the pilot gives him the ring of power, gives him the power ring. And he gets inducted into the, at the time, 3,600 strong Green Lantern Corps patrolling the universe. Now, if you're saying to yourself it does not feel like a normal superhero origin, you're right. It, particularly in the 70s and 60s, it was different.
Yeah.
Even now, it's hard to describe. Like, there aren't that many characters that you're like, oh yeah, he's a hero on our planet, but out in space, he's literally just a beat cop.
Right. He's just like, there are times when the Guardians, who bestow the power on the Green Lantern Corps, and we'll get into them more, literally just call him by his sector number. What was it? What's the sector? 28?
2814, baby.
Yeah. Like, that's literally what they call him by. They don't call him Hal. They don't call him Jordan. They don't call him Green Lantern. They literally call him
Lantern
by his
2814.
Right. But so it's like, and again, obviously because he's Green Lantern, he's Hal Jordan, you gotta raise the mystique, obviously, of the Earth hero and make him more powerful. He does.
Which gets retconned into making sense by Jeff Johns later on, which is nuts.
Right. Which I can't, like, again, every time we do these things, we start off with the craziness of the mess and this is why we got to do two for the Green Lanterns ones. At least two. We got to start with the mess that is the different origins and the different stuff here, right. And then we'll eventually get into the Jeff Johns stuff when stuff really starts making sense and is easier to read in some cases. But again, some of the stuff is so good. And like I said, the Emerald Dawn stuff, to me, I went back and glanced through Showcase 22. I think 7 through 9 are the first appearances of Sinestro. Yep. But when you read Emerald Dawn 1 and 2, you basically get Emerald Dawn 1. I think is 3 issues, 6 issues.
It's 3 issues. I gotta pull it up.
I think it's 3 issues. And in those 3 issues, you get a great introduction. Maybe it's 6. Hold on, I gotta double check. You basically get Hal Jordan's origin story, which is a good introduction. So you don't have to go in. It's 6 issues. The first Emerald Dawn is 6 issues. So you get a good introduction to Hal Jordan. And what I like what they did with this is they dirtied him up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So he's not just, before you hear, oh yeah, he's a star test pilot, he's awesome, he's just the greatest thing ever. In Emerald Dawn, you're like, no, he's kind of a loser. He's still a pilot. He had just gotten, he's working at a third of his pay now because he's done something to piss off Carol and her father. He gets in an accident because they're out drinking with his brother and some of his best friends, and one of his best friends, I think, was it Tom?
No. I think so, yeah.
And who was the star test pilot, gets in an accident, ends up running into a sign. DUI, right? And you're like, wow, we're really going to start this with the hero getting a DUI?
Well, that's why I liked Emerald Dawn, is because it was the first ever Marvelizing Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
They gave him feet of clay and made him human and made him relatable. And not saying that everyone has a DUI, but everyone screws up.
Well, no, I'm glad you said it's Marvelized him, because that's immediately what I thought. Like, this, reading Emerald Dawn 1 and 2, I was like, this feels like a Marvel comic book. This feels like a Marvel origin story here. Yeah. And because basically what you get is you don't just get, because you muddy him up, but then you get the redemption, right? So,
which is the whole point.
Right. And it makes it so much better of a read than having someone, and we always say this about DC, that feel like they're gods with these godlike powers and that they can do nothing wrong. And so when you read Emerald Dawn and you read that, and then I read some of the other stuff that comes afterwards, all the way up to basically the fall of Hal Jordan, it makes so much more sense then. Because Hal starts off as being this rebel, being this antagonistic person who just can't follow the rules and doesn't want to fucking listen, and is just, he comes off that way, and him being this challenging force and doing things beyond the order of what the Green Lantern Corps wants and beyond their simple rules, it would make him special, makes him stand out, but it also kind of can lead him down the wrong path. And so I really enjoyed how Emerald Dawn did that, and that's how you get in those first 6 issues. In Emerald Dawn 1, you get that. You get him coming in. I think he's fighting Legion, right? And that one, yes. So in that one, he's fighting. Yes,
that's Emerald Dawn.
Right, yeah. He's fighting Legion, and so he literally gets this ring of power, and You also have him trying to balance. I think this is a recurring theme throughout Hal Jordan's career up to this point is trying to balance being this international and part of the international police force, and also keeping a connection to home and its humanity. You know, and I think it's just really well done.
No, I couldn't agree more. I'm a huge fan of, and it's one of the things is that Hal Jordan, particularly with Emerald Dawn, giving him these foibles, he becomes so much more relatable. Mm-hmm. And it's this guy who's always trying to do the right thing, and he's a hothead, and he's a little bit of a drunk, but you see why he's such an effective Lantern in just the 6 issues they show you.
Right, and he's always running up to this point. He's always running from responsibility. He's always like that's the one thing that stood out to me in that beginning. He was like when he runs into this sign when he's drunk because he was drunk, but he was also thinking about and blaming everybody else for his failures.
Right.
So he runs into the sign and causes this accident, and he literally says, "Oh, the sign was too close to the road. It was the sign's fault. The sign shouldn't have done it. Sign shouldn't have been like." He's literally trying to push it off on everybody else, and so you literally watch as Hal Jordan has to come to terms with taking responsibility and owning up to it. And basically, what you get is he goes through being the first six issues, becoming a Green Lantern. Agreeing to join this force, and then agrees to go to face his punishment. Turns himself in to the police and pleads guilty for his DUI.
Yep, and even getting to that point with the battle on Oa, where the Guardians are like, "Hey, it's a wrap. We're out of here. Yeah. Oa's done. Let's just run." He refuses to run. He takes that step in that responsibility and grows up in the 6 issues, if you will. But it establishes why the Hal Jordan we're going to discuss next in the Silver Age was such a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I guess we should step back a little bit and talk a little about the Green Lantern. Because, again, the interesting thing about Green Lantern and Hal Jordan is him becoming a Green Lantern isn't the origin of the Green Lantern Corps. You know? It's not. The Green Lantern Corps was, and I think you get this. Where do you get this origin for the Guardians of the Universe?
Maybe Yanthastel?
Yeah, and I couldn't find it, so I didn't actually read that one.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to, I couldn't find it, so I didn't read it yet. So
it's basically the Methulgians, I think it is, become they evolve super quickly. They become the story they tell. Up to this point, up to the point that we're going to stop, the origins to us are known as from Malthus. They became an evolved race of beings who wanted to become a centralizing force for the universe, source for good. So they create these things called manhunters to enact an intergalactic law. The manhunters are robots. They're deemed ineffective, which becomes a problem later. A lot of times, actually.
Right.
And they eventually say, "Oh, we should deputize a being from each space sector to be that sector's Green Lantern." The Green Lantern is someone who has no powers. They have no natural abilities. Are there Lanterns who have powers? Again, we'll talk about them later. But the idea is it's an average inhabitant of the sector who has the ability to overcome great fear and is given the power ring. The ring is the most powerful weapon in the universe. You can create, and if you can imagine it, it can create it. And they do really cool things with explaining how different Lanterns use the ring in different ways, how their oath may alter based on what kind of Lantern they are. There's Rocklot Fan who can't see color.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah, I love that one. Like, yeah, that one where she comes back and says, "Yeah, you create a new Green Lantern in that sector." Yeah, so about that, he can't see colors, so
he calls himself the F-sharp Bell.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because it's just it's a cool concept, and you could stop it at saying, "Oh, these guys all have rings," but the creators are all like, "What's the weirdest thing we can do with that?" Mm-hmm. There's a squirrel lantern named Chip,
which I'm not gonna lie, I started getting I got a little emotional with Chip, man. I got a little attached to Chip.
Was that Mosaic?
Yeah, I got a little attached to Chip. I got a little attached to Chip, yo. I was like, wait, it's literally yeah. What I loved is as you go through some of these issues. I mean, obviously there's Tales of the Green Lantern Corps, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Alan Moore's a crazy person.
He is. We'll talk about some of that stuff later on. But some of these other issues that we read, some of the other I want to say Green Lantern Volume 2 and maybe 3, I think definitely Volume 2. What they did was after they told you the main Green Lantern story, there would be like a 3 or 4 three pages of like stories about some of the other Green Lantern Corps.
Right.
And I thought they were just really great because you get these weird stories. Like there was that one where I think Tumar is telling one of the new recruits about this bounty hunter that want to go, this evil guy that want to go and fight a Green Lantern. And he's like the baddest Green Lantern ever. We go fight. So he went to this planet and waited there years to find the guy. And then he realizes that the planet itself
doesn't socialize, baby.
Right? Mogo doesn't socialize because Mogo's an actual fucking planet. That's a Green Lantern. Like it's this huge concept that shows you how big the Green Lantern Corps can be and how important of a concept it is. And
it's so cool because I think the backup stories let you feel like, oh, even no matter what you're reading, it's just a small slice in this larger tapestry.
Yeah. So, you mentioned it before, the oaths. They had different ones, and I think
there is a standard oath.
They've done the standard oath now, right?
It's a standard oath. Yeah,
it's a standard oath now. I didn't think was it always a standard oath?
There's been variations. I think what's his name? Chance, the Lantern Station on Apocalypse, which you think that's a bad posting, you're 100% right. He had his own. There are a couple individualized oaths, but it's always been in brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. But those worship evil's might, beware of how Green Lantern's light. Which, as we get into some of the emotional spectrum stuff of the second half of this podcast, gets interesting in the way they play with it. But yeah, the oath, man, it's simple, but it's effective. It describes the characters like, this is what we do. And I think it's important that something that presents itself as a police force has like a governing oath, an ethos, if you will.
Right. And the oath also serves a purpose. That's the oath they say when they're going to charge their ring. So again, another little interesting thing you do. So you give a police force, just like in regular life, you give police this ultimate power, and you give them the most
which also work as body cameras because they record everything you do when you're wearing a ring.
Right, which is amazing, right? Look at that work.
Huh? Isn't that crazy? I thought of that in the 70s.
Right,
the 70s.
Interesting. Most powerful weapon in the world, in the universe. Fuck the world, universe. And one way that you can limit it, you get two limitations. One has to be charged every 24 hours, or every cycle of whatever sector you're in. So if you're from Earth, then obviously it's every 24 hours. Maybe a different cycle is on a different kind of cycle thing. But basically whatever standard rotation is in your sector, that's how long it takes. That's when you need to recharge the ring, which again, way of limiting power. Because if you don't, and we'll see this later on, once Green Lantern starts deciding that they have power that they can use for anything, it gets kind of scary. So there's that, and there's also the famous vulnerability to yellow, which well, listen,
is the dumbest weakness in the history of comics aside from Alan Scott now being able to affect wood.
I was about to say that. I was just going to say, well, hold on. Alan Scott had a weakness to wood, so it's got to be the second dumbest weakness. But
you're right. I was ready.
Yeah, I was prepared for that. I was like, wait a minute, it's stupid, but yeah. So and later on, I don't know. I don't think that they say this at that time. When do you find out that the weakness is because of the impurity put in?
Rebirth.
Okay, so it's not until
Geoff Johns.
Okay, so Geoff Johns is the one that finally goes and saves. Because I was like, I'm reading all this. I'm like, wait, I know why the weakness is there.
You know why it's been retconned.
And I'm like, oh, that's why it's been. Oh shit, son of a bitch. So they never explain why. Because literally there'll be at least in some funny moments, in some really ridiculous moments, when you literally have a guy who can conjure anything with his willpower, beating the crap out of somebody, and somebody, like in Alan Scott's case, hit him with a club.
Yeah.
or
cover yourself in yellow paint and the ring can't affect you anymore.
Right. And I'm like, why don't more people do this?
They did an All-Star Batman and Robin, which I finally read, which, that was bad.
What was?
All-Star Batman?
Oh, no.
I'm the goddamn Batman. Like it's bad.
Wait, what Batman is this? New Batman?
No, it's All-Star Batman was Frank Miller and Jim Lee a couple years ago.
Oh.
And there's an entire issue where he has to fight Green Lantern, but to prep for it, he made Robin paint the entire room yellow. And he painted himself yellow, and Hal couldn't touch him. It's a funny scene, but it's not worth reading the whole series.
Right, no. I'm gonna
find
find just that. I'm gonna just find that and read that.
I'm never gonna pull it for you. Just give you that scene.
Right, because that is amazing. And you're literally going, son of a bitch. That just doesn't.
The dumbest weakness ever. But you're right. You have to hobble your character in some way, and especially in the 70s with the storytelling not being what it is today, it was harder to say like, this guy's a drunk. He's a hero though. But it was easy to say, oh, his powers don't work on yellow. Why? Why not? And otherwise, you've got the most powerful weapon in the universe on your finger.
Right. So, yeah.
For 24 hours.
Right.
Which was another great limitation because it made them have to come to a home base or call a battery. It gave every writer who wanted to, and they all wanted to, every 2 or 3 issues, you got to put the oath in there. Mm-hmm. So you could build your story around, like, how are we going to get back to this oath? Come on, everyone see the oath.
Shit, they do it every fucking issue. Like in the early days, it's like every issue. And I'm like, wait, it's been less than 24 hours. You're just charging the ring to get the oath in there. And I'm like, hey,
top off the ring before you leave the house.
Hey, listen, I'm not gonna complain. I'm not gonna.
And I think that the coolest thing about Green Lantern and the reason it appeals to kids and adults alike is that idea of wish fulfillment. Mm-hmm. The idea that I buy this ring on my finger, I can do anything in the world. There's a scene in one of Kyle's books when he and Jade are flying cross country, and he says, "I don't think I'll be a lantern forever, but before I retire, I'm going to make like green cufflinks or something." She's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I'm never flying commercial again. This is ridiculous." So I don't need to be able to make constructs. I need to really defend myself, but I will never fly in an airplane again. It's so cool. It's like it's literally Aladdin's magic lamp on your finger.
Yeah, like I love how when Hal goes to get trained, they're like, "Oh, you taught yourself with a flight." We're like, "Well, I'm a test pilot, so yeah, that's the first thing I learned how to do, because flying is my thing, And like always, like, yeah, but can you fly this fast?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. Because when your limits your imagination, your limits only what you know. Like, and I think that's always been the appealing part of the character and the bigger idea behind the character is that anything I can imagine I can have happen, and they explain it better and differently as the character goes on. But for the longest time, it was just a wish fulfillment ring. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Which is cooler than I'm making it sound for some reason. But yes, early on in the Green Lantern run, we get the introduction of Sinestro. If his name sounds sinister to you, that's because naming conventions were very much on the nose in the 60s.
Very much. Yeah, those are issues 7 through 9 in Volume 2 of Green Lantern. So,
And that's where you learn about the Yellow Lantern out there, whose power ring can do everything yours can do, but your ring's effective against it. So they've given him, in 9 issues, effectively not just a great backstory and a great weakness, or an effective weakness. They got a specific villain that attacks that weakness, and they later show you just why Sinestro was so antagonistic towards the core, which is actually kind of a Shakespearean type, like, morality tale.
Yeah, so Emerald Dawn 2. I actually read that before I read I just skimmed through. I only read the Green Lantern issue number 9, because I wanted to see when Sinestro got the yellow power ring. They don't show you when he actually got it. He just has it. So I was like,
exactly. It's very, very 70s. Very like that person just shows up and is, of course, equipped to be your bad guy.
So I'm gonna stop right here before I go into Emerald Dawn 2 and just say this. I think a lot of the first half of this Green Lantern tale is just gonna be talking about things and how they are. And I'm pretty sure when we get to that second half, we're gonna talk about the retcons of how they explain how some of this stuff happened. So Sinestro has a yellow power ring, and you're literally wondering how did that happen. And even then, I think Emerald Dawn 2, which comes out years after his first appearance, does a better job explaining what happened with Sinestro and the antagonistic behavior with Hal.
And there's a reason I put Emerald Dawn 2 on the list and not any of the other, because let's just be clear. They had explained why Sinestro was not a Lantern anymore before. Mm-hmm. They do that before, but it's not done with such impact and such directness with Hal until Emerald Dawn 2.
Yeah.
And you learn that Sinestro wasn't just a Lantern before Hal. He was the Lantern before Hal. He was the man.
Yeah, he was the lantern that brought order to his sector. And so what happened? So basically, when you get into Emerald Dawn 2, you start with Hal going to prison because he goes to do the right thing and stand up for himself and take responsibility. And he goes, and again, I just want to say this also. Us reading this stuff is so timely after talking about the whole stuff about keep politics out of my comic book shit. Don't read this Green Lantern shit then, guys. Literally,
don't read comics. I don't know what the fuck you people are or what comics you read. Yeah. But they had a gay kid in Archie, so I'm sorry, guys. It's everywhere.
The judge literally throws the book at Hal Jordan going, no, I have a problem with people that are drunk drivers. We're not going to give you 90 days. That's the max I can give you, but I'm giving you 90 days in a maximum security prison. That's how it's like. Emerald Dawn 2 starts with Hal Jordan going to serve 90 days for DUI in a maximum security prison. I'm going, well, how the fuck are you going to, like, how do we get 6 issues out of this? Because he's going to be in prison for 90 days. And I think it's literally called 90 days, and that's what he does. And so what he does is, while he's in prison, he also leaves to go be the Green Lantern and get training from Sinestro, who is approached by the Guardians and be like, hey, you've brought order. We need you to you're and Hal Jordan is like the complete opposite of order. He is everything he needs.
Hal Jordan's an asshole.
Yeah, Hal Jordan's an asshole. He doesn't listen. So we need to give him training from our best Green Lantern. And so Sinestro agrees to do this reluctantly. He's thinking to himself, if I leave my people, if I leave them, they're not going to have order. Who's going to protect them? And you start to realize that maybe Sinestro is not really. He brought order to his sector by being kind of a tyrant, and you get it when you kind of see it because he's there and they're cheering for him, and you see the people kind of look kind of weird. They have banners with his face on it, but there's that moment when right before right when the Guardians summon him, somebody like either drops something or he steps on a piece of trash, and he gets so angry, and the people around him get so worried, and then the Guardians snatch him away, not knowing what he's doing, and people go, "Oh, thank God," And I'm like, "Oh my God, Sinestro is literally ruling over these people and not giving them any free will, not giving them any chance to do anything." And what you get is during these 6 issues, you get Hal Jordan and being trained and by Sinestro, but it's well done.
Chris, are you telling me that a 70s comic book telling you that fascism is wrong? Get your politics out of my comics, bro.
Right. I mean, between that, I mean, like you get these interesting things because he has to go back to the prison every so often, right? And it's just interesting to see. Like Sinestro shows him how to create manifestations that are that can look like it's him in his bed and things like that. And then they go out. Obviously, everything comes crashing down when Sinestro tells Hal, hey, listen, my people aren't responding to I've been checking in with them daily. They haven't responded. So let me go and check on my people. And they literally get shot out of the sky. And then that's when it comes out that these people are totally afraid of Sinestro.
Or they were afraid. They're ready to fight back now.
Oh, yeah. Now they're ready to fight back. So, and
really poor timing for Sinestro.
Really poor timing for Sinestro. So literally you have, Sinestro who is, and you see that it's also a tale kind of like, absolute power corrupts. Like he had all this power. He was so focused on order that his way of bringing order was to take the choice away from the people.
If they can't betray you, they don't have the freedom to do so.
Right. And the Guardians, this comes to potential the Guardians, and they punish Sinestro. They send him to what is it, the antimatter universe?
Antimatter universe, yeah.
Yeah, they send him to the antimatter universe.
Cord, if you will.
Yeah, and that's where he's sent off to. And of course, Hal Jordan testified against him. So again, you set up not only Sinestro getting kicked out of the Corps, you also set up his hatred of Hal Jordan for doing this.
Because he holds him mostly responsible. He's the one who blew the whistle. Yeah. He is the good cop who spoke out.
Yeah, he Sinestro also called Hal Jordan, I think, as his witness, saying, "Hey, I trained this guy. You just tell him the truth. Yeah, my people were good." Like, and Hal Jordan's like, "Yeah, no, they were good, but they were also terrified of them." One of the good things that come out of this, I can't remember who her name was, but one of the leader of the rebellion against Sinestro is then given his ring to run over that sector.
Kat Matui.
Yeah, there we go. Oh wait, that's the one that okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was her. Yeah, so I was like, I thought that was her, but I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember.
I can tell you were like, why does he know her name's about? Oh shit!
No. I had to double check and I couldn't remember. Cause I remember seeing her later on. I was like, I really want to say that was Katma, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I didn't want to say it. So now, and that makes everything more sense too. So a lot of that stuff will play later on, especially when you get down to Jon Stewart and everything else like that. Like it's all connected and. Like I said, Emerald Dawn 1 and 2 are really good reads for that. Like I said, you can probably avoid most of the other stuff and just read those two and be fine. Let's see. Green Lantern 59 is the first appearance of Guy Gardner. And I think that's the one where they basically show you that when the alien... Avon Sewer died. He's the one that Hal Jordan took over that sector for. There are actually 2 viable candidates, and it just so happened.
And Hal got picked because he was closest.
Yeah, he was closest.
Which will always, forever, not sit well with Guy.
Right. And I believe, didn't they do something with retcon that with Booster Gold and a Booster Gold where they made sure that Guy was further away than, look, I'll say it now. I'm not a Guy fan.
Yeah.
No.
I think if you keep reading, you'll start to like Guy. Guy grows on you.
Man, maybe. Have you
read a lot of Guy stuff?
I haven't read a lot of Guy. Every time I see him, I just get annoyed.
Like, how's it? Well, you know what? That's the point of the character.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to be an abrasive asshole.
Yeah, I think maybe.
But as you read more, like you see that he's actually you see why he's a Lantern. You see why he got the ring.
Yeah, I mean, I get why. I just I think his appearance in Emerald Dawn. I'm like, oh, no. I was like, wait, I was expecting more of an asshole. And then more and more I was like, oh, God.
Well, they explain the asshole thing, too, later with another retcon.
Yeah.
They retcon a lot of stuff away, but at the same time, like, when eventually you get the 4 Musketeers, Kyle, Guy, Hal, and John, at one point, Guy moons the JLA as they're leaving for Oa, and Batman goes, tells Kyle, tell Guy he needs a shave, and then Kyle's like, why do you do that? He goes, honestly, he's like, because they think I'm a buffoon, but they know I'm not. Like, it's just fun to play into it. He says, but why do you tweak Batman? Oh, because he's an asshole. I was like, oh, okay. He says, Lanterns and Batman don't mix. He lives on fear. We live by overcoming it. Like, we just don't mix.
Right.
Which is a really great line, a really great retcon as to why, like you said, Guy is a dick. But you also get moments like JLI when he gets punched by Batman and the fight ends in one punch. Which is still one of the greatest panels in comic history. Because if he wasn't that big of a dick, you wouldn't be so happy watching him get in the face.
Yeah. Hey, listen. If you're telling me that Guy grows on you because he has to be the world's punching bag and he has to be the asshole, somebody has to be the big asshole out of the group of Green Lanterns.
That's basically what he's embraced his role as, but he's also the Lantern ass kicker. So like if he shows up, like, oh well, we're gonna be fine.
Right.
Like it won't be pretty, but we'll be fine.
Right. There's gonna be a lot of mess to clean up, but
there will be some cleanup, but we'll be fine.
So then I think the next really interesting, and again, I think 59 is a great one to read because then you'll see what would have happened. You get to see what would have happened if Guy got the ring before Hal, and basically what they say is, Hal was destined to be a Green Lantern. It was going to happen eventually. So, I think the next really important thing to read is Green Lantern. It's still volume 2, I believe, 76 through 89. Those are hard traveling heroes issues.
To set this up, there was basically flagging sales in Green Lantern book, and they were like, well, what if we threw in a Green Arrow backup to these books? And that was their first idea, but then they said, why don't we just do like a co-book? And you get the hard traveling heroes arc where literally Hal, and Ollie drive across the country. Mm-hmm. And you get like the social active. You finally get like the thing in the 70s was there was a social undertone that became way more prevalent. And you get the very famous issue of you listen to the blue skins and you work with the green skins, but no one does anything for the black skins.
Yeah, I was just about to read that issue. I got it right here. Yeah, so because Hal shows up and stops this guy from getting beat up. And the people around him start throwing garbage at him. He's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, he was like, "Why didn't you stop him?" I was like, "I was thinking about helping him." He's like, "Yeah, because you basically stopped that guy's a slumlord, and he's about to get all these people kicked out and all this other stuff." And so basically, it was great to see what you get through this series is you get a good balance between the super liberal and super activist Green Arrow and Oliver Queen. And versus literally a cop in Green Lantern who wants order and by the books and by the rules. And it's a good balance between the two. And so you get this issue, like I said, in that same issue, you have a black guy who's like, I've been reading about you, how you work for the Blueskins and how on a planet somewhere you helped out the Orangeskins, and you done considerable for the Purple Skins, only their skins you never bothered with. The Blackskins. I want to know how come. Answer me that, Mr. Green Lantern.
So, can I cut you off really quick?
Mm-hmm.
This is my favorite moment in comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of great things I love about comic books, but this is the one because, for me, sci-fi is best when it's a mirror of the reality it's living in. And you can obliquely discuss things, and we've talked about this in lots of other shows, and how you discuss society deals without directly implicating people in society. And there's always a step removal that makes sci-fi more palatable form of social commentary, which is why comic books exist. Mm-hmm. This was the book, and I think, oh man, who wrote it? Was it Neil Adams?
Pretty sure it was.
I think it was Neil Adams. He said, fuck that line and fuck that wall. Mm-hmm. Fuck the allegory. Let's have a conversation. And this is the 1970s in a comic book. And again, if you want politics in your comic books, take up something else. Yeah. Comic books, by their very nature, speaking of the trials in the 50s, are political.
Mm-hmm. And he goes on, okay, maybe I have been a dummy, so tell me, how do I help? And the black guy says, and again, so relevant to today. I'm no advice committee. If you want to bad enough, you'll find a way. And I think you do want to.
Yo, I need to see if Neil Adams and Nick Spencer are related.
Right, because it's like, that's real. It's like, yo.
That's the realest answer you're going to get.
Don't ask me to tell you how to do what you need to do. Like, if you want to do it, you'll figure it out. You'll go and do it.
And it's so brilliant because for even like when you're using allegory, so many times that there's a magical Negro or purple or blue skin or whatever who has the answers that you've been looking for. Mm-hmm. But this is a real answer in the 70s. Like, it's impactful. Like, it's a real answer. Like, I can't tell you what to fix. I tell you what's broken.
Right. You got another one here in the next issue where they're helping these miners, and Lantern again goes, "Hold on, Green Arrow. This is none of our business. If Soames really is in charge, oh boy, now I've heard it all. Because Soames muscled his way into authority. He's a good guy, huh? Hitler was the boss of Germany. Remember? Then there was this guy Genghis Khan. Throughout history, cheap punks have made themselves leader, regardless of their titles. They were still cheap punks." It was just a great way of seeing them having to deal with that. This is also during the hard traveling hero stuff. This is also the time when you find out Speedy's on heroin, which leads into some good issues. Because then you flip it on the head where it's Oliver Queen that's being kind of a dick and not understanding. And there's just these were some of the realest issues I've read from older issues here. Because like you said, they don't sugarcoat it. They don't try to give you allegories. They give you real life situations. Like Oliver literally walks in on Speedy shooting up some heroin.
And it's interesting because it wants to show you that no matter how well intentioned you are, you're never going to be 100% right. Because has Hal Jordan done great things as the Sector Lantern for 2814? Of course he has. But has he ignored the plight of the smaller man of his own home? Yeah. And he's coming up to that and learns that it was serious. Has Green Arrow been a champion for the working man, for the people who are trod on by these bureaucracies and these people who, like you said, muscle their way into power? Of course he has. Has he missed the note under his own nose?
Yep. I love when Hal was taking Speedy to see Dinah. He says, How'd you begin? Taking drugs? Curiosity, I guess. I heard about these great kicks. Didn't you realize the danger? I had some sermon thrown at me, but Lantern, your generation has been known to lie. Dig it? You told us war is fun, skin color is important. A man's worth is the size of his bank account. All crooks. So why'd believe you're a drug rap? I wish I could answer you, but anything I would say would be a crock. Like, that's, again, real answer, yo. That's the real shit. Like, that's, like, I can't. No.
Also in the 70s, this is the comic book where DC took the Comic Code Authority off. So if you've ever read old comics, in the top left of every comic is the Comic Code Seal and Authority. That it's not. It's basically the answer to the misdirection of youth trials in the 50s. Was they invented this comic code that would approve every comic book that came out. They wouldn't approve of this book. They wouldn't. They said no. And DC said, fuck it.
All right.
We'll take the code off. And they took it off for one issue. But it set precedent that code may not be what we think it is. And that was, now if you look, I defy you to find me a book published in the last 10 years that has the Comic Code Authority in the top left corner. It's died out because the idea and the act of making a comic book is inherently political. It's inherently driven by a larger need to communicate a larger ideal. And you can't do that with handcuffs.
No. Can't. It's Dennis O'Neil. That was the writer.
Dennis O'Neil.
Dennis O'Neil wrote it. Neil Adams drew it. Yeah. So also during Hard Traveling Heroes, I think this also falls in there. Yes. The first appearance of Jon Stewart. Guy Gardner gets hurt, and that's the other thing too. They never really explain when Guy actually. I never found out when Guy actually gets the ring permanently.
It doesn't happen. Okay, so what happens is the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Okay, so Hal gets sidelined. Guy gets awakened by a rogue sect of Guardians. Gotcha. And handed a separate ring.
Okay. Because I was just like, it was kind of weird.
This guy goes into a coma, right?
Right. And so, it was just really weird. So here you get Guy goes into coma, so the Guardians go, well, we need a backup. He was basically the backup for, which again, they never explain why all of a sudden you have a backup for a Green Lantern. Because I'm like, why would you need a backup? The Green just find somebody new. Exactly. So it doesn't shit doesn't make sense, but roll with it. So the Guardian side,
which gets addressed again by Johns. He's like, why are there so many lanterns in that sector?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Because again, it just doesn't make any sense. But
any sense.
Jeff Johns saves us all. So the Guardian side, they're going to get a backup for Hal in case anything happens because we've never done it before, but fuck, we're going to do it now. So in issue 87, you get introduced to Jon Stewart. And again, not pulling any punches, you have Jon Stewart is literally stopping a police officer who is trying to threaten some black men who are playing dominoes on the sidewalk. And so Hal Jordan's over here with a Guardian who sees this and goes, that's the man you want to trust with a power ring? The finest weapon ever devised? He has all the due qualifications. We're not interested in your petty bigotries.
Nigga. He called Hal Jordan a racist.
Hey.
I was like, oh. Hey. I remember her. I was like, yo, comics are real.
Hey, that's not what I meant. Maybe he's brave, honest, and has the right kind of mind, but it's obvious he also has a chip on his shoulder the size of the Rock of Gibraltar. So it's that Hal does what he says, okay, I'm gonna go and train this guy. So they go in and they're training. They have a mission to save there's a guy who's running for president, and John's like, well, the guy's a racist. Hal's like, well, that's our job. We got to make sure that everything's okay. So they go down there, and there's a truck that's speeding over, and John stops the truck, but it's an oil truck. But he punctures it in such a way so that the oil hits the guy in the face. And so, John, you were stupid and irresponsible. So I maybe missed my aim with the power beam, and the senator got a little blackened. What's to worry about it? I've been dark all my life. I'm surviving. I don't believe you missed. Okay, I didn't. Listen, Whitey, that windbag wants to be president. He's racist, and he figures on climbing to the White House on the backs of my people. You think he's a racist? Tough. Nobody appointed you to be judge. You need a lesson, and I'm the guy who's going to teach, who's teacher. As of now, I'm assigning you to guard Senator Clutcher. If anything happens to him, you've had it. One last thing, don't call me Whitey. Something in that reminds me a little bit about who he who was out sitting casting the first stone. Like he really, all lives matter to this shit. Like it's so good. Oh man. Later on in the same issue, you find out that there's an attack on the senator. Hal goes after the what he thinks is the gunman. John Speed's like, I'm not going there. I'm not going to do this. And Hal is just upset.
Yep.
But it turns out that John was right. He figured out that the gunman that Hal was going after was a decoy, and he went after the real gunman and stood him up. So he says, my name's Green Lantern the Second, remember? No, it's not. You're a disgrace to your uniform, your ring, and yourself. I warned you. Teddy, I don't enjoy being manhandled. Listen, you round up that pistol that cat fired at Clutcher and meet me inside. You're going to have to have your own lesson. And he basically goes in and tells Hal Jordan, you were fucking wrong. 100% wrong. So, yeah. So, in this, you get Hal finally agreeing that, yeah, John Stewart's is worthy of the Green Lantern name. And John Stewart is basically, he's kind of like on call. He's not a full-time Lantern. He gets on call every now and then.
Right.
And then you get issues 172 to 187, which at one point, I can't remember what the exact issue, but Hal decides he's going to give it up. He's going to retire from being a Green Lantern. And this kind of goes back to some of the things you see in Emerald Dawn, where Hal misses home. Like, yeah, he's a Green Lantern. He does a lot of things in the sector, but he also pisses off the Guardians because he still has his connection. He's not like the other Lanterns where they enjoy being around all their sector. Hal still wants to go home. He misses his people. He doesn't want to be
Earth.
Yeah, he misses Earth. He doesn't want to be just traveling around. So at one point, Hal is going to give it up. And his other friends like Katma are like, you can't do this. And she's actually very upset that he does this because it's like, you told me to give up my stuff and now you're not going to do it for yourself. You told me to give up the man I love. And here you are giving up the core to go back to Carol. And I'm like, because Hal Jordan's an asshole.
I mean, look, he's not, and that's what he's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
They never try to make him perfect.
Mm-hmm. No.
And you're right.
He's not perfect.
He's an asshole.
He's not perfect, but at the same time, they also don't make the Guardians seem perfect. He has some good points about the Guardians, and I think John's the same way. A lot of the Earthbound Green Lanterns don't see the Guardians as perfect. They see them as flawed, and like what gives them the right to tell us what we can and can't do.
It's a book about challenging authority on a large scale.
That's about people that are in authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so you get a lot of that in there. But then you also get, I think it's around, what issue is it that John actually becomes a full-time Green Lantern in there? Let me see. Because that was, it is 182. So Hal gives up being Green Lantern in 181. John becomes a full-time Green Lantern in 182. So he basically becomes a title character and the main Green Lantern, I think, up until...
He gets the book?
Yeah, he gets the book. And I think it's from 82 on to, for a while, to 200, I believe.
Which is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chris,
I don't want them replacing my established hero with an ethnically different version of him, Chris.
Right. Right. And let's be honest, this is John Stewart, DC's first black superhero. And doesn't just take over for some small character, and not just some small... He takes over for Green Lantern. Hal Jordan. Who at this
Big
point...
7.
Hal Jordan, that's a huge deal. John Stewart takes over for him.
And he does it without a mask.
And that's the best thing about it. Doesn't care. I think there's one issue in there where the reporter that John's talking to reveals that he's John Stewart, and Hal is incensed. He's like, he can't do that. Why is he doing that? And you realize, because he's not you, Hal. He's not you.
He's the other Green Lantern, the Black Green Lantern.
Right. At one point, he tells, because he's partnered up with Katma. And he basically tells her, he's like, oh, I wore the mask because I thought it was part of the uniform. If I didn't know the rest of you guys didn't wear masks, I'm not going to wear a mask now, And the first time he actually puts the uniform on, he doesn't wear a mask. But he tells he tells Hal, he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna wear a mask. I don't care. I want people to see that it's me. I want to see it's my black face here, you know. And I think it's great. I think it's awesome that DC did this. You know, give him something that's this big and this huge. You know, and you
but
later.
It's something that you and I have talked about. That.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying something you and I have talked about that DC will occasionally let smaller books get this run, and that's what Green Lantern was at the time. If you can count, this was the '80s, so their big book was New Teen Titans. Mm-hmm. So a place where they could experiment and try these things, and you could let Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams tell these crazy stories, was Green Lantern, because they can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The decision to make the character black resulted from a conversation between Adams and editor Julia Swartz, in which Adam recounts that given the racial makeup of the world's population, we ought to have a black Green Lantern, not because we're liberals, but because it just makes sense. That's it. Like, I want you now look to what we have today with Sam Wilson being Captain America, and people go, "Oh, not my Captain America." It's like, yo, how the fuck do you think? Like, they literally replaced, you know, they literally had. It's the same thing. Like Green Lantern, Hal Jordan retired, his backup took his place.
James Rhodes' Iron Man.
Come on, come on. Some other stuff too that was really great with John Stewart. I read Mosaic.
Nigga, right?
Yeah. So
you walk away feeling like he should be a bigger deal than he is. And
I think that's the problem I have. I'm like, yo, like, so if you go to volume 3 of Green Lantern and you can read the setup for this. You read, I think it's 13 through 17. I'm not sure exactly when. Like, one of the Guardians goes rogue and brings a bunch of alien races, including humans, and their entire cities to Oa. Mm-hmm. And it's a big deal because these people are ripped from their homes and they're put onto this planet, and there's no way to get them off. And the Guardians say they don't have the power to do it. And John Stewart is literally left there to keep the peace. So you get in those 3 issues to set up for. But they also give you a Mosaic issue. There's 18 issues, Green Lantern Mosaic, and it's an entire John Stewart book. It starts. I'm not gonna lie. It's a weird book. It's very, very weird. Starts off very weird. Starts off very weird, but it literally ends with John Stewart, in my mind, becoming one of the most powerful Green Lanterns we had at that time.
He becomes a Guardian.
Literally, he's the only. He becomes the only mortal Guardian called the Master Builder. Like there's a scene in there where he literally he has a fight with Hal Jordan because Hal's like, hey, listen, you need to stop this. Your mind is gone, and I'm not gonna lie, he has some issues with his mind because the Guardian had entered into his mind, and he fights Hal Jordan like in their minds. Whoops Hal Jordan's ass.
Yeah.
Like, again, you read Mosaic and you're like, why isn't he a bigger deal?
It's like, yo, this guy is great.
Yeah. He's an architect, so obviously when he makes constructs and he does stuff, it's like there's a science to it. It's
built. It's firm and sustainable.
Yeah, it is incredible what he can do because of his normal skill set. You know, Hal Jordan was just a test pilot. Fearlessness got you. But building constructs and willpower, okay. This is up John Stewart's wheelhouse. Like, this is what he does. He builds things.
Yeah, it's. If you want to make the case for John Stewart as one of the greatest Green Lanterns of all time, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
It's the Mosaic run. It's the run where he ascends to being a Guardian, where he whips out Jordan's ass. Like, it felt like they were building up to something else in DC, and then they just dropped the ball. Yeah,
and that's where I know as we go forward into part 2, I'm going to feel a little bit let down because I'm like, there's a lot you can do here. And at this point, and the other thing too that's a mark of the Green Lanterns and all these issues we have, some marks of tragedy. So throughout this run, John Stewart and Katma become married. and she's struck down and killed. I think that's Action Comics 601 and 602. She's killed. He has at one point he failed to save a planet, or he either destroyed a planet. I can't remember which one.
Oh, he's trying to save it, man.
Yeah, he's trying to save it.
It's something that plagues him forever after this. But Sanshi is the name of the planet. I'm not even looking at it. I just know it.
Yeah, it plagues him in this. It plagues him throughout Mosaic. It's like, and you see him battling all this stuff, battling not being good enough, and he's given this chance by the Guardians, and what he realizes, they're testing him to see what he can do, to literally bring peace to all these warring alien races, and he's the only one that can do it, and that's what those 18 issues of Mosaic are, and they're very, very weird, but yeah, I thought that it was really well done, and I wish they could have done more with Jon Stewart with that. Let's see. Before we get into the Green Lantern Corps stuff, so we'll finish that up with that. Do you want to talk about Emerald Twilight and basically the fall of the Green Lantern Corps and fall of Hal Jordan?
Sure. So what happened, and we'll talk, like you said, we'll talk about Tales of the Green Lantern Corps before we get out of here because it's just such great, trippy Alan Moore writing. The Emerald Twilight. So what happened was, from a business perspective, Green Lantern wasn't selling well. And DC said, well, we've got to figure a way to shoot a little life in the arm, and they were going to bring in another new Green Lantern. And they figured out, what's the best way to do that? Because it's hard to get into a new book, say Green Lantern #1, and say that, there's this other years of mythos behind it. Editorially, they were going to decide to try to get rid of the Corps, at least pare down the Corps some. And in a decision that has been written about and argued about for, at this point, 20 years, they tied Green Lantern into the death of Superman arc. And so while we were all wearing the black armbands for Superman's death, when they brought him back, they also killed Coast City and everyone Hal Jordan lived with and cared about.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's a great setup because, again, remember, before this, Hal Jordan, he quit the Green Lantern Corps at one point. Everything he did was to get back to the people in Coast City. That was his thing. So
what happened was they effectively took away his anchor. He was destroyed by Cyborg Superman, which is a point that comes to become a very big point of contention later on. And he tries to recreate the city by channeling his will into his ring. The Guardians come before him and say that your willpower has exceeded the capabilities of the ring, which is a great line. Mm-hmm. And he says, and I just need more power. And Hal Jordan goes on a tear across the universe, making a beeline towards Oa. They put the best and brightest lanterns in front of him. He ends up cutting off Boudica's hand, stranding lanterns in space by stealing their rings. He lands on Oa with 10 rings collected, and the cover is crazy. Like if you're like, oh, that sounds nuts, it was nuts.
Yeah, it's how the image of Hal Jordan powered up with all 10 rings in his hand and fists. It is. Oh, okay. Shit's gonna happen.
He ends up killing the Corps trainer Kilowog,
who has trained him. That's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal. It's something we didn't talk about. We'll talk about in a second. Right. But Kilowog is the Corps for a lot of casual, even non-casual readers. He was a Green Lantern on Earth for a while. So even the Earthling or the Earth heroes know Kilowog, and Hal kills him. And the Guardians say that we need to release the one person and empower him with the rings who could stop you. And they released Sinestro, who we all thought was dead and had been dumped in the Central Battle Battery. Hal takes the other rings off and whips Sinestro's ass.
Right. He's like, you know what? He's like, I love what he said. He's basically like, yeah, I don't want there to be any doubt of what's about to happen here. So I'm going to take these other rings off so you know. So you know.
It wasn't like he had goaded into doing. He's like, I want everyone who witnesses this to know
right.
It was me who whipped your ass.
Right. Not the power.
So he ends up breaking Sinestro's neck and stepping into the Central Power Battery and absorbing all of that power into himself, ostensibly to recreate Coast City. And Parallax is born. We'll talk about it in the second half. But I want you to know that this ends with Hal Jordan effectively killing the Corps by himself.
Yeah.
If you ask yourself, some of these stories before or after, Hal's kind of a dick. He has willpower, and they've done a very good job because they always say the greatest Green Lantern. But if you read his books, you see why. Mm-hmm. He does feats that no one's thought of. Mm-hmm. He killed the Corps. And of course, Gonthet gets away and ends up in the back alley of a bar where there's a struggling artist puking. And he says, "Well, I guess you'll have to do." And he hands the last power ring to a drunken artist named Kyle Rayner, who we'll talk about in part 2.
How in Emerald Twilight he literally kills the core, and you're just like, huh, that was a little bit too easy.
Yeah, he just cuts through him like a hot knife through butter. It's nuts.
Right. He's just like,
He's just gone all of a sudden. Like, oh, that was a lot faster than I thought it'd be.
Right. Yeah. This is gonna be hard. I mean, I think let's talk quickly about Tales of the Corps, Tales of the Green Lantern Corps, because I feel like this is basically the primer on Green Lanterns here. What we're doing now, giving you a quick, because I think a lot of things that happen here don't really get full explanations until we get to part 2. When you start getting into more stuff, and because again, the other thing is you don't want to get too far in because then things get retconned and they don't matter anymore. So you have to set the baseline first, pre-crisis, and then get into what happens afterward, because things get better explanations and better changed, and then they go from there. But yeah, the Tales from the Green Lantern Corps.
I could read these all day.
Yeah, I mean, they're just...
like you said, we already talked about Mogo doesn't socialize. Mm-hmm. You just get these little slices of something bigger, and then you get Alan Moore doing things called like Tiger Burning. Like when he did with Tiger, and when he did with Blackest Night, directly informs everything we talk about in part 2. But it's also like the idea of myth building and the world building that Alan Moore didn't know if he'd ever get to write those stories. But he just threw it out there and said, man, if someone wants to pick this up one day and run with this ball, I've got it for him. And it's something that I don't think we see enough of in comics anymore, because everyone's tell their story and get out, or tell their story and stay forever. But Alan Moore is just like, man, wouldn't it be great if we did something like this? And he invents these characters. He invents Sodom Yat, the Daxamite who gets a power ring. He invents the Empire of Tears. He invents all these things, the War of Light, these things that are mentioned and never expounded upon. And that you think is just just an interesting, because with something like the Green Lantern Corps that's existed since the beginning of the universe, there's so much ripe, fertile ground for storytelling. And I think that sometimes in the most recent books that we've fallen, as a fandom and as the writers have fallen too much into leaning into the mysterious origins of the universe to kind of explain away or kind of inform some of the things, the choices that are made in the book. But when Alan Moore did it, it was fresh, it was new, it added to the tapestry, and now we'll talk about it in part 2. But man, those Tales of the Green Lantern Corps books are just, for me, they're someone saying, "Oh, you can talk about space cops, huh? What about before and after?" And it asks the cool, weird, probing questions that you want good sci-fi to ask.
Yeah, some of them, like there's a couple of them that show you basically the cycle of the Green Lantern. Like a Green Lantern comes in, gets the ring, and then does all this stuff, then dies, and another person gets the ring. And like they're really cool, interesting stories that you, like you said, expand the universe. You know, expand the universe and show you that the Corps is bigger than just the Earth-based Green Lanterns, which I think is important to know and important to see. Yeah. So. Was there anything else that we should expand on now? At least to prepare people for part 2, which is I'm gonna tell you right now, part 2 is gonna be much longer than this one.
Yeah, much longer, because like with this, and because of the way Green Lantern was used, it was harder to find like larger substantive stories. There are a lot of good small stories, like the Lord Malovio saga, when Hal gets trapped inside an evil ring. Like there's a lot of cool things that happen, which actually is a really weird conspiracy theory as to how Parallax occurred, because after that event, he didn't actually have his ring anymore. He was using an evil old ring. Anyway, it's a big thing. But what happened next was as we say, like the Renaissance in writing in the 90s and the early 2000s, they really took hold with the lanterns. And it was able to be explored because when you have Kyle Rayner being the only lantern left to patrol the entire universe, you're able to kick over some of these things and say, oh, why is that a problem? Or what? Oh, we never investigated this. Or, well, what the hell's left on Oa now? and it allowed you to make the story smaller again before blowing it up and making it just as big as it ever was, if not bigger, with Rebirth. And we'll talk about all those phases of the waxing and waning of it, but I'm super excited because what we enjoy the concept, the idea of Green Lantern is so cool and so interesting, but like you said, it doesn't get fully realized until we really get after Emerald Twilight, which for some people to this day who are diehard Hal Jordan fans is still the biggest mistake Green Lantern ever made.
Oh, really?
Though people like for years, even during Cal's run, they're like, I refuse to read it because Cal's not my Lantern.
Hey, it's almost similar to things that happen today, right? With
isn't that weird?
Yeah.
And then they made Kyle Hispanic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They read Kyle Hispanic, which I'm sure somebody hated.
Yeah, because I'm like, it really, if you really think about it, this is the structure of it follows what's happened with Captain America today, right? You have Captain America gives gives the shield to his backup, then Captain America comes back, becomes evil, and is probably going to be taken down. That's basically the Hal Jordan story. You know, after going through and like I said, you got to just be sure Hal Jordan, like that's his book. He goes in like the story of Hal Jordan and Emerald Twilight. Like, yeah, they made it into its own trade paperbacks, but that was in the main Green Lantern books. Like that is, I think Volume 3 of Green Lantern. I can't remember. I'll find the exact issue numbers for it, but that's how that went. And then you start the next issue, and it's literally started with Kyle.
Yeah.
Who has a ring, and there's and one Guardian left. It's one Green Lantern left and one Guardian left.
It's basically good luck. Hope this works out for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so and like I said, a lot of interesting things happen after the setup of this stuff, and I think that especially with all the characters. So I know originally we said we were going to start this with just Hal and John, but as we started reading, I'm like, all right, cool. This more has to be like the opening primer that talks about all four of them, and then we go from there to talk about what happens afterwards, because I think that's important. I think this gives people enough time to kind of catch up to where we're at. This is where everything starts, and again, you have the different relationships, like the Green Lantern, Green Arrow relationship, is an important one.
Yeah,
and plays in 0 Hour. It's a lot of stuff here that we got to catch up and establish the world before you can tear it all down and then build it all back up again. So
and tear it all down and tear it all down and tear it all down and tear it all down.
Yeah. So
which is the mode the Lantern books have been in since, in my opinion, Sinestro Corps War. It's just been hit after hit after hit. I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is getting a little uncomfortable to watch. But we'll talk about that next week.
Actually, no. We're gonna, because the next character corner is gonna be Wolverine, and then we got.
Oh, you're right. I forgot there's a break.
We're Wolverine, and then we're a break. I think we do Wolverine, and then we do Iron Fist. Then we come back. So, which I think actually works out, because we're gonna need a lot of time to catch up with what goes on with the Green Lantern stuff, guys. It's like I said, this is just us warning you of what's coming next.
Forgive me, for I have already waded into the New 52 stuff.
Oh, I thought we were just gonna skip over that.
Look.
We've just been skipping over New 52 stuff, so I just thought we were going to skip over.
Well, this is one of those runs where it's like I can't avoid it, like Batman. Like with Batman, I can't avoid it because they didn't actually change anything from the old universe.
Oh, they did?
They let him come over completely whole. It's like, well, here's your stories now. I'm like, wait a second.
Oh.
So we'll see how it goes. It's not great.
Yeah. Oh goodness. So we'll be getting to that. But the next character corner will be in a couple weeks. It'll actually in a week, couple weeks. In the last weekend of February, we're doing it. Wolverine. I actually see Logan next week. This week coming up, I see Logan, and I am not excited for that. And but the Wolverine.
I'm not letting myself hope.
Yeah, do not hope. The Wolverine one should be fun, because here's the thing. Deepom and I don't have to talk about this one. I already know what we're going to talk about. It's another X-Men character, so it's just. Yeah.
It's just about finding time to record it now.
Yeah, that's what it is, and making sure we have time. So, and then after that, we do Iron Fist and Colleen Wing, and then we'll come back to finish off the Green Lantern, which, I mean, we're saying one more part, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Like, this might turn into a Doom. I think the first Doom one was the same way. We started off the first Doom episode. It was like, hour and 10 minutes, not that bad. And then we went to the second one. It was like, God, we need another episode. Oh, God, it's gonna be 3 parts. that might happen with the Green Lantern. So let's see what happens. So, damn it, I thought about that. We got how many? Oh yeah, because it's more than the big four. Oh god.
Yeah, because the other two show up.
Good God, yeah, this might be a strap in, guys. It might be a long ride.
You will get all of this eventually.
You will get all of it. You will understand it. Again, this is just the primer for it, and thank you guys very much for listening. Again, if you guys want to Character Corner, leave us a 5-star review, read it on air, let us know what you guys think, and find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, search for Character Corner, and until next time, we are out of here. Peace.